My name is David. I'm 31 years old, and I never thought the person I trusted most would humiliate me so openly. But the night it happened, she didn't just whisper her disdain. She announced it like a declaration, making sure everyone around us heard. We were at a family dinner, the kind where cousins and relatives gather around a long table, laughter and chatter filling the air. I had barely set down my fork when my wife leaned back in her chair, her voice cutting through the room like glass. "I need a richer man," she said flatly, staring right at me. "You'll never be enough." The words hit harder than I could process. The table fell silent. Forks stopped midair. My uncle cleared his throat. My aunt looked away, but some of my cousins smirked, whispering behind their napkins. My wife didn't flinch. She wanted me to feel it, the sting of being belittled in front of everyone. I sat there frozen, my chest burning, every part of me screaming to defend myself. But no words came. Instead, I stared at the woman I once believed loved me and realized the truth. I was no longer her partner. I was just an obstacle standing between her and the life she thought she deserved. Humiliation doesn't always come as a shout. Sometimes it comes as a cold sentence spoken in public, designed to strip you of every ounce of dignity. That night, she succeeded. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the settlement waiting just around the corner would turn her declaration into the biggest mistake of her life. Because I was about to walk away with $11,600,000. When I first met Claire, I thought I had won the lottery. She was beautiful, confident, and seemed genuinely interested in me, even though I wasn't the wealthiest man in the room. I was steady, hardworking, and practical. I lived within my means, saved carefully, and believed that building a life together was about patience and commitment, not flashy displays. In the beginning, she pretended to share that vision. She told me she admired my discipline, that she liked how grounded I was. But over time, her words changed. Compliments turned into comparisons. Admiration shifted into mockery. And the woman who once claimed she wanted a stable man revealed she really wanted a wealthy one. It started small. On my birthday one year, I bought her a necklace I had saved for months to purchase. It wasn't from a luxury brand, but it was elegant and meaningful. She opened the box, forced a smile, and said, "It's nice." Then she held it up next to the bracelet her friend's husband had bought her, a thick gold piece with diamonds, and whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Some men really know how to spoil their wives." I laughed it off at the time, telling myself she didn't mean it, but the seed was planted. Then came my promotion. I was proud. I had worked nights and weekends for months, and finally, my boss gave me a senior position. I came home with the news, expecting excitement. Instead, she frowned and asked, "That's it? Do you know how much Sarah's husband makes? He earns triple." That my victory shrank instantly, crushed beneath her comparisons. The worst came at a family barbecue. I had just brought over drinks when I overheard her talking to my cousin's wife. She sighed dramatically and said, "I'm tired of living like this. I want more. I deserve a man who can give me a real life of luxury." She didn't even lower her voice when she noticed me standing there. She just looked at me, almost daring me to react. I swallowed the humiliation, pretending I hadn't heard. But inside, I was bleeding. Those moments piled up like bricks on my back. Every dinner out turned into her scrolling through her phone, showing me luxury handbags she deserved. Every holiday became an argument over why we couldn't fly first class. Every gift I gave felt like a test I failed. And yet, through all of it, I kept my head down. I worked harder. I saved more. I invested carefully. What she never realized was that while she mocked me for not being rich enough, I was quietly building security, not just for her, but for us. I thought if I stayed patient, if I kept proving myself, eventually she'd see that love mattered more than luxury. But Claire didn't want love. She wanted status. It all came crashing down one night when we were arguing about money again. I told her I was saving for a down payment on a bigger house, that if we were patient, we could have everything she wanted. She rolled her eyes and snapped, "I don't want patience, David. I want a richer man. You'll never be enough." The words hung in the air like poison. And in that moment, I realized she wasn't bluffing. She had already decided I wasn't worth it. I felt small, humiliated, and utterly powerless. But I didn't fight back, not yet. Instead, I turned her words over in my head and remembered something my father once told me. Don't argue with someone who's already shown you what they value. Just prepare yourself. So that's what I did. Quietly, carefully, I started preparing. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't try to prove myself anymore. I just kept working, kept saving, kept letting her believe I was the fool she could discard when the time came. What she didn't know was that while she was dreaming of a richer man, I was sitting on the kind of settlement she couldn't even imagine. Because sometimes justice doesn't come with revenge. It comes with a signature on the right piece of paper, and soon enough, she'd find out. The final crack came sooner than I expected. One morning, Claire walked into the kitchen dressed to perfection. Hair done, makeup flawless, perfume lingering in the air. She wasn't heading to work. I could tell from the outfit. She sat across from me at the table, coffee in one manicured hand, and placed a folder in front of me with the other, "I've filed for separation," she said casually, as if she were announcing the weather. "It's time for both of us to move on." I stared at the folder, my stomach twisting. The papers inside were neatly tabbed, already signed on her end. My chest tightened as I looked up at her. "Claire." "Why?" She didn't even hesitate. "Because I want more. I've wasted enough years waiting for you to become something you'll never be. I want a man who can give me the life I deserve." The words landed like a knife. She wasn't hiding it anymore. No sugarcoating, no half-truths, just cold, blunt rejection. For a moment, I wanted to argue, to remind her of everything I had given. The nights I stayed late at work to provide for us. The sacrifices I made so we could build a future. The countless times I bit my tongue when she mocked me. But I didn't. I just sat there, silent as she twisted the knife deeper. "You'll walk away with nothing," she added, smirking. "That's the beauty of it." I've already spoken to my lawyer. Everything. This house, the accounts, the car. It'll be mine. You'll leave with what you came in with, which, let's be honest, isn't much. Her confidence stung almost as much as her words. She truly believed I had nothing, that I was powerless. To her, I was just the fool who would fade away while she upgraded. I took the folder in my hands, flipping through the papers, pretending to be shaken. Inside, my mind was racing. She didn't know. She had no idea about the investments, the settlement clauses, the agreements already in place, the safeguards she had overlooked in her greed. But in that moment, I let her believe it. She stood up, adjusting her blouse as if brushing me off was just another chore. "You'll sign them eventually. It's only a matter of time. Everyone knows you can't fight me on this." You can't afford to." Her arrogance was suffocating, but I kept my face calm, my voice even. "If that's what you want, Claire, then that's what you'll get." She smirked again, misinterpreting my calm as defeat. "Good. And don't embarrass yourself by dragging this out. Everyone already knows I deserve better. You'll just make yourself look pathetic." With that, she grabbed her purse, her heels clicking against the tile as she walked out the door. I sat alone in the kitchen, the silence pressing against me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt steady. Because while she thought she had cornered me, she had no idea the game was already rigged. I looked down at the papers, at her neat signature scrawled across the bottom, and a bitter smile crossed my face. She thought she was about to win everything. But in reality, she was about to lose more than she ever imagined. The humiliation she had planned for me was nothing compared to what was coming for her. And the first glimpse of that truth would arrive at the next family gathering, when she decided to announce her victory in front of everyone. The ambush came at a family gathering. Claire always loved an audience, and this time was no different. My cousin had invited us all for dinner, a big spread with relatives, friends, and neighbors packed into a long dining room. The air smelled of roasted lamb and garlic bread, glasses clinked, and laughter carried across the table. But I could sense it before it happened. Claire wasn't just there to eat. She was there to perform. She waited until everyone was comfortable, the main course half finished, conversations flowing. Then, with the kind of dramatic sigh only she could deliver, she tapped her wine glass with a spoon. The chatter quieted. Heads turned. She smiled sweetly, placing her hand on my arm like she still cared. "There's something I need to share," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "David and I are separating." The room fell into stunned silence. Forks froze mid-air. My aunt gasped. My uncle raised his eyebrows. I stayed still, my jaw tight, as Claire leaned back in her chair, perfectly composed. "It's for the best," she continued, her tone dripping with confidence. "David is, well, he's a good man, but I deserve more. I deserve the kind of life I've always dreamed of. Luxury, stability, security, and he just can't provide that." The words were a dagger delivered with precision. A few relatives exchanged looks, some pitying me, others nodding as though agreeing with her. My cousin muttered, "She's right, you know. She's always wanted more." Another whispered, "Poor guy, she's outgrown him." Claire thrived on it. She leaned forward, her voice louder now, making sure everyone heard. "I need a richer man. And I've already started moving on. David knows this, and he understands. He'll walk away quietly, as he should humiliation wrapped around me like fire." My ears burned, my chest tightened, and I could feel every pair of eyes on me. Some looked at me with pity, others with smug judgment. Claire's smirk told me everything. This wasn't just an announcement. This was her victory lap. My father cleared his throat, trying to ease the tension. "Claire, maybe this isn't the time." But she cut him off. "It is the time. People need to know the truth. I won't live small anymore. I won't settle." She turned to me, her eyes sharp as knives. "And David knows he has nothing to fight with. Nothing to offer. It's over." A few cousins clapped awkwardly, as if she had given some kind of brave speech. My aunt shook her head at me like I had failed her niece. The shame pressed down hard. I wanted to shout back, to tell them all about the sacrifices I'd made, the nights I worked late, the way she mocked me behind closed doors. But I stayed quiet. My silence made them think I was defeated. It made her think she had won. She raised her glass as if to toast her own triumph. "To new beginnings," she said proudly. "To a better future." The room murmured in agreement. I sat frozen, my fists clenched under the table. The humiliation was suffocating. But beneath it, I felt something stronger, a calm resolve. Because while she basked in her performance, she didn't know what was coming next. The settlement papers hadn't been revealed yet. She thought she'd walk away with everything. The house, the accounts, the car. She thought I'd leave with nothing, just as she declared in front of everyone. But the truth was, those very papers would soon flip her entire world upside down. The whispers around the table blurred into background noise as I stared at my glass, my face unreadable. Let them think I was broken. Let her think she had crushed me. Because the next act of her little performance wasn't hers to control. It was mine. The family dinner should have ended after Claire's announcement, but she wasn't done. Humiliating me once wasn't enough. She wanted to bury me. After her toast to a richer man, she leaned back in her chair with that same smug smile and motioned to her purse. "I brought something," she said, pulling out a folder. My stomach sank as she spread the documents across the table like a magician revealing her final trick. The separation papers. "They're ready. All he has to do is sign." Gasps rippled across the room. My aunt leaned forward, eyes wide. "Right here? In front of everyone?" Claire smiled sweetly. "Why not? We're family. They should know the truth. Besides, David knows he has no choice. He'll be leaving with nothing." Her words stung sharper than any knife. The relatives whispered. A cousin muttered, "Poor guy." Another said under her breath, "She's trading up." Claire slid the papers toward me, tapping the line where my signature belonged. "Go on, David. Sign it. Don't drag this out. Everyone here knows it's the right thing to do." I stared at the papers, my jaw tight, the humiliation pressing down like a weight. The room was silent, waiting for me to fold. My wife smirked, thinking she had finally crushed me, but then something caught my eye. Across the table, one of my younger cousins had his phone raised, not just recording, but live streaming. A faint red dot blinked at the top of the screen. The whispers weren't just in that dining room anymore. They were spilling into phones, chat groups, maybe even Facebook Live. For once, I didn't panic. I stayed calm, letting Claire revel in her moment. "David," she prodded, her voice sharp. "Sign it." I looked up at her slowly, my voice quiet but steady. "No." The word echoed louder than I expected. Gasps filled the room again. My father's fork clattered to his plate. Claire's smile faltered for the first time that night. Her face twisted with rage. "Don't embarrass yourself, David. You don't have the money to fight this. Just sign." The crowd buzzed. Whispers, turning into chatter. "Is he refusing? Does he have something up his sleeve?" Claire's voice rose, sharp and mocking. "You're pathetic. You'll leave with nothing, and everyone will see you for the loser you really are." Her hand shot out, shoving the papers into my chest. The live stream caught every second, the sneer on her face, the arrogance in her voice, the way she cornered me in front of everyone. I pushed the papers back gently, my expression calm. "You think you've already won," I said quietly, "but you don't know what's written in the settlement." The whispers turned into a roar. Relatives leaned forward, eyes wide. Claire froze, confusion flickering across her face. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. I didn't answer. Not yet. The humiliation she tried to drown me in was now circling her instead. The live stream captured it all. The arrogance, the mockery, the slap of reality as her confidence began to crack. For years, she had treated me like I was nothing. For weeks, she believed she'd walk away with everything. But she had no idea that the lawyer waiting in the wings was about to flip the script in front of the same audience she tried to impress. The crowd murmured louder, relatives exchanging glances, phones buzzing with notifications as the live stream spread. And I sat there silently, letting the weight of her own arrogance hang heavy in the air, because the next voice to speak wouldn't be mine. It would be the lawyer's. The dining room was tense, thick with whispers and shifting eyes. Claire stood tall, arms crossed, waiting for me to crumble. The separation papers sat between us, her signature already mocking me from the bottom line. And then, from the far end of the table, a calm voice cut through the noise. "Actually," the man said, adjusting his glasses, "David won't be signing anything tonight." Heads turned. It was Mr. Reynolds, my lawyer. He had been invited by my father, sitting quietly until the moment came. Claire's smile vanished. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, her voice sharp. Reynolds didn't flinch. He set a leather briefcase on the table and clicked it open, his movements deliberate. "I'm here," he said smoothly, "to clarify a few details about this so-called settlement. Because what you've been telling people is inaccurate." The room leaned in. Phones tilted higher. The live stream caught every word. Claire's eyes narrowed. "Inaccurate. Please. I've already spoken to my lawyer. Everything is mine. David knows it." Reynolds smiled faintly, sliding a thick document across the table. "That's not how the law, or your prenup, works. Did you forget?" The color drained from Claire's face. Reynolds continued, his tone calm but firm. "Before your marriage, you signed a prenuptial agreement. It specifically stated that in the event of separation, David retains full rights to his investments, assets, and trust, inheritance. In fact, the settlement clause ensures David receives financial compensation, secured by the trust fund your family agreed to as part of the marriage contract." The murmurs grew louder. Claire's relatives exchanged stunned glances. My aunt whispered, "Wait? What does that mean?" Reynolds answered clearly, his voice carrying across the room. "It means that instead of Claire walking away with everything, David will walk away with $11,600,000 in assets and liquid settlement. Claire, on the other hand, forfeits her claim to both the house and the account she bragged about moments ago." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, shocked laughter. Phones buzzed as people texted updates to friends and family. Claire's mouth fell open. That's impossible," she stammered. "This has to be a mistake." Reynolds slid the notarized documents closer, tapping the embossed seal. "No mistake. This was signed, witnessed, and filed years ago. You might have forgotten, but the court hasn't." The live stream caught her shock perfectly. The way her smug confidence melted into disbelief, her cheeks flushing as the crowd stared. "You're lying!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "This isn't fair!" Reynolds remained calm. "Fairness has nothing to do with it. This is the law, and this," he tapped the papers again, "is the reality you chose when you signed your name years ago." The humiliation hit her like a tidal wave. The same relatives who had nodded along with her earlier were now whispering behind their hands, smirking at her collapse. A cousin muttered, "Guess she wanted a richer man. Looks like David's the rich one now." Claire's face twisted with rage. She turned to me, her voice trembling. "You knew." You let me embarrass myself in front of everyone. I looked at her steadily, my voice calm. You embarrassed yourself. I just let the truth catch up. The silence that followed was deafening. For once, she had no comeback. The live stream had captured it all. The arrogance, the mockery, and now the downfall. Reynolds packed up the briefcase, his work done. David will finalize everything in court. But as of now, you're the beneficiary of the settlement. Congratulations. He stood, nodded politely to the family, and left the room. The weight shifted instantly. Claire, who had strutted into that dinner with her head high, now sat slumped, her glass untouched, her face pale. The whispers were no longer about me. They were about her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I simply sat back and let her humiliation speak louder than I ever could, because that night, in front of the very people she wanted to impress, she learned the cost of her arrogance, and the number was exactly $11,600,000. The night of the dinner ended with Claire storming out, her heels clicking furiously against the floor, face burning under the weight of whispers and half-hidden smirks. She had arrived expecting applause, validation, and sympathy. Instead, she left with her confidence shattered and her reputation in tatters. But humiliation has a way of lingering. Within days, the live stream clip circulated in every family WhatsApp group, neighborhood chat, and even on Facebook among distant relatives. People watched her smug declaration, "I need a richer man," then saw the lawyer calmly dismantle her confidence. They laughed at her arrogance, shook their heads at her greed, and whispered endlessly about how blind she had been. The whispers didn't stop at family circles. They spread into her social world, the friends she bragged to, the women she compared herself against, even the man she had been eyeing as her upgrade. When he saw the truth, saw how she had been left not with riches but with nothing, he vanished. Calls went unanswered, messages ignored. In her attempt to climb higher, she fell so low that even those she thought would catch her refused to look down. Claire tried to spin the story, of course. She told her friends it was unfair, that I had tricked her, that the lawyer had blindsided her. But no one believed it. The documents were clear, the live stream undeniable. And in a community where appearances matter more than reality, her image was ruined. Meanwhile, I was living a different story. The settlement was finalized in court, and just like Reynolds promised, $11.6 million was mine. Legally, untouchably, undeniably. The judge signed the final papers, and for the first time in months, I felt the weight of humiliation lift off my chest. Not because of the money, but because the truth was finally visible. I hadn't been the failure she painted me to be. I had been the foundation all along. Opportunities followed quickly. Business partners who had once dismissed me suddenly wanted to talk. Old colleagues reached out with offers. Even relatives who had smirked at me during the dinner began to treat me differently, careful, respectful, suddenly aware of my value. It was ironic. For years, Claire told me I wasn't enough. And now, with the settlement behind me, people were treating me like I was more than enough. But money wasn't the real victory. The real victory was freedom. Freedom from her constant comparisons, her endless dissatisfaction, her sneering remarks that chipped away at me day by day. With her gone, the silence in my house wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful. Claire's downfall only deepened. Words spread about her arrogance, her failed gamble, her loss. Women she once bragged to now whispered about her behind her back. Men she once admired avoided her. not wanting to be associated with her mess. The richer man she dreamed of never came, because no one wanted a partner whose greed had already been exposed to the world. I saw her once, months later, at a grocery store. She was dressed impeccably, but there was something different. Her eyes tired, her smile forced, her cart half empty. She noticed me, but pretended not to. I didn't say anything either. There was nothing left to say. What struck me wasn't anger or satisfaction. It was pity. She had spent years chasing an illusion of wealth and status, and in the process, she lost the one thing that might have given her both: loyalty. As for me, I didn't flaunt the settlement. I invested wisely, built a business I had dreamed of, and surrounded myself with people who valued me for who I was, not for what I could buy them. Slowly, the scars she left began to fade, not erased, but softened. The whispers about Claire never stopped completely. In family circles, her name became shorthand for greed. "Don't end up like Claire," someone would say when a story of arrogance came up. And every time I stayed quiet, sipping my drink, because I didn't need to add to the humiliation. It was already permanent. What surprised me most was how many people reached out privately. Old friends, even strangers online, who had seen the clip or heard the story. They said things like, "I went through something similar," or "Your story gave me strength to walk away." For the first time, I realized my humiliation wasn't wasted. It had become a lesson, not just for me, but for others too. Claire had once tried to convince me I was worthless, that I'd never be enough. But her greatest mistake was forgetting that value isn't defined by someone else's greed. It's defined by what you endure, what you build, and what you protect. She walked away with nothing but whispers. I walked away with peace, dignity, and $11,600,000. And when people ask me now what happened to my marriage, I just smile and say, "She said she wanted a richer man." In the end, I was richer without her. Looking back now, I realize the settlement wasn't the real victory. Yes, $11,600,000 gave me stability and freedom, but what mattered more was the lesson. Claire's betrayal forced me to confront something I had avoided for years, that my worth was never tied to her approval, her comparisons, or her endless hunger for more. For so long, I believed I wasn't enough. Every time she compared me to someone richer, every time she rolled her eyes at my efforts, every time she sneered in public, it chipped away at me. I started to think maybe she was right. Maybe stability and loyalty didn't matter in a world where wealth was the loudest voice, but the truth revealed itself in the end. Wealth without respect is meaningless. A richer man without loyalty is just another empty promise. And Claire learned that too late. The scars she left don't vanish. I still remember sitting at that family dinner, hearing her say, "I need a richer man." I still feel the sting of relatives smirking, the burn of humiliation crawling up my neck. Those memories live inside me, but they don't define me anymore. They remind me. They remind me that silence can be strength, that patience can be power, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's walking away with peace. I don't hate her. I don't even wish her pain. Hate would mean she still has power over me, and she doesn't. What I feel is pity. She traded loyalty for greed, love for luxury, stability for illusions, and in the end, she walked away with nothing. What I walked away with wasn't just money. It was clarity. It was the ability to build a life without her voice in my ear, without her judgment hanging over me. I built a business, surrounded myself with people who value character, not just wealth, and found a peace I never had during the marriage. Respect is priceless, and peace is non-negotiable. So if you've ever been told you're not enough, if you've ever been humiliated for what you don't have, remember this: your worth isn't measured by someone else's greed. Sometimes the people who belittle you are only exposing their own emptiness. Claire once said she wanted a richer man. She didn't realize the richest decision I would ever make was walking away. And now, when I look at my life, I understand something she never did. Money can buy comfort, but respect, loyalty, and peace, those are priceless.